Hi guys, so I want to say before the video actually starts is that if you start to notice variations in my voice, it's because I was recording these during certain times where I was feeling very under the weather. I didn't have COVID or anything, but it's just one of those times where you just start to feel the seasonal change and it starts to get to you. So I sound kind of like crap, at least in my opinion. So I still managed to get my point across about these movies, but I just wanted to let you know, and this is also combined with the fact that I kept coming from work, and sometimes before going to work, I would really work my butt off on these, so I would be pretty tired and a little fatigued. So I just want to let everybody know that, just in case you're wondering why I sound weird at some points in the video and not in the other. And I was a little embarrassed, but the thing is, the video was already put together, and it already took me weeks to put together, so I just thought I'd put this disclaimer rather than just do more re-recordings than I should. So I hope you enjoy the video, and yeah, peace out. Hey peeps, I'm slapping you all in the freaking face with another awesome film recommendations list. Now, back when I used the Matthew McConaughey gif in the last video, I said that I'll try to pump the numbers up. And if you haven't already figured out, I've been ripping off YMS down to a T with his style. I mean, I love his work so much that I copied it. I mean, what you gonna do, sue me? So yeah, instead of 8, I'm pumping the number up to 15. And now some of these movies, most of you probably have heard of, some of you probably haven't, and that doesn't make me any better than anyone else, far from it. That just means that I have no social life. So I have to give a disclaimer, and that's the fact that I'm not really certain how to rank this list, so I'm just sort of playing this out subconsciously, and I hope to introduce both a new old generations and new movies they probably missed on their radar. Sounds familiar? So with that intro, let's go ahead and get on with the 15 recommendation movie list thing. So number 15 is Cloverfield. Now I'm sure some of you are asking, why in God's name am I recommending this movie? Well, simply because I like it. This was pretty much a memorable theater experience for me growing up, and while this movie has admittedly worsened over time, it's by no means less watchable. The blending of the found footage style and the big budget special effects is still very well done, and the performances are actually all pretty solid still. Without spoiling anything, this film manages to successfully maintain the element of mystery throughout the large-scale chaos, and despite following some of the stupidest characters ever in a movie, this film's pacing to the end is actually very satisfying. Now, I can name a few found footage movies that are much better than this one, but Cloverfield is among them as one of my absolute favorites. You're probably wondering what I thought of 10 Cloverfield Lane and the Cloverfield Paradox. Well, I wish Cloverfield Lane wasn't canon, but rather a completely different movie, which it was supposed to be in the first place, and I haven't seen Paradox and I don't want to. Maybe I will one day, but I'm not really in a hurry. Overall, this one stands on its own legs far better than those two, and I don't really care for what Matt Reeves has done after this movie, but Cloverfield is still a pure adrenaline rush of a ride, and I highly recommend it, so check it out. And number 14 is City of God, directed by Fernando Meirelles, who directed The Constant Gardener. This film takes place in the 60s and 70s and tells the story of a kid named Rocket who lives in the violent, crime-filled slums of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. I just love how both stylized and realistic this film is. It manages to purge you into this violent and unsettling setting while still being both vibrant and creative in its presentation. This film does follow several characters and their experiences in this incredibly chaotic crime-ridden environment, and we get a sense of how it strongly affects the youth, showing that things like this can create an unending cycle. All the performances are fantastic, mostly attributing to most of them being unknown actors, which complements the realism. The cinematography is incredible, with a variety of choices that mix realistic documentary style camera work with stylistic shot composition where moments it's necessary. This is an energetic yet disturbing movie that can admittedly be difficult to watch at times, but I still highly recommend it, so give it a check out.
Qual é, Dadinho? Dadinho é o caralho, meu nome agora é Zé Pequeno, porra.
Zé Pequeno sempre quis ser o dono da cidade de Deus, desde os tempos.
And number 13 is the documentary Jesus Camp, directed by Heidi Ewing and Rachel Grady. Now, my personal beliefs have nothing to do with why I'm recommending this movie. Some of the best documentaries are the ones that just present the subject and allow the audience to make up their minds. After my own viewing experience, this is pretty much an unsettling documentary that paints a pretty detailed picture of the Pentecostal church and the controversy behind it, as well as its influence on the youth. At first glance, this might not seem like much, but we start to see underlying intentions behind why these kids are taken to this camp, and it gives a pretty frustrating expose on how politics can affect spiritual communities. This movie hurt my heart to watch because it can be very revealing at times. So if this looks good to you, then I highly suggest you check it out. Number 12 is Summer Wars. This has to be one of the most exhilarating, fun, and engaging animated films that I've ever come across. From its vibrant animation to its tight writing to its involving characters, Summer Wars manages to successfully be several things at once. A family drama / comedy, a science fiction film, and consistently in tune with its anime sensibilities. Think Digimon plus war games plus family themed films maybe. Now my only complaint is the obvious and distracting product placement that seems to keep creeping up in the film. Sadly, it becomes all the more visible to me the more I watch this movie, but I doubt it'll bother other people. This film is still highly worth the watch, and I recommend it, no hesitation.
This guy stole my Oz account! He's the one that ruined everything! I'm a victim of identity fraud!
And number 11 is Star Trek Beyond, directed by Justin Lin. Now I don't care what anyone says, but this is objectively the best of the reboot trilogy. You can tell me that I'm wrong, but I'm not. Once these clowns were gone, especially this one, writers Simon Pegg and Doug Junn improved some of the aspects that actually mattered the most. The characters and their dynamics are vastly improved, the special effects have a more fully realized sense of scale and are utilized much better, and the entirety of the cast managed to finally get these characters right while still making them their own, respectively. Justin Lin's direction is much stronger and more awe-inspiring than Abrams, and the film's pacing manages to move so fast that you don't even notice the 2-hour runtime. My only criticism is the plot. I don't come down as hard as many others have. Well, the problem is that the plot is just incredibly simple. There are some really dumb stuff that happens in this movie, and the villain, while I liked his character, his functionality and the plot really fell short. But I've yet to get tired of this movie, and I stand by this statement. This is the one they should have started the reboot trilogy with. You don't have to be a Star Trek fan to appreciate this one, so I suggest you give it a watch.
Well, at least I won't die alone. Well, that's just typical.
Number 10 is Isle of Dogs. Notice the double meaning? Wes Anderson is one of the most consistent writer-directors in the film medium today. He manages to shoot his films exactly the way he wants them, whether it be animation or live action, and he continues to improve his already impressive craft. Isle of Dogs is his second stop-motion animated film, and I'd argue that it's his best looking. He pays attention to so many details, big and small, that you have to be blind to not appreciate his work ethic. Aside from the fantastic animation and overall visuals, the story and characters are very well developed, and the world building itself is stellar. The score suits well with the film's quirky tone, and the film is paced incredibly well. Now, I wouldn't say that this is a flat-out kids movie, especially considering the PG-13 rating, but I feel kids would still enjoy this just as much as adults would. My only real issue was a scene that I felt was completely irrelevant, but the part is so small and brief that it hardly matters. I recommend this film to everyone, especially considering how accessible it is, so give it a watch.
Worm-eaten banana peels, a moldy rice cake, a dried-up pickle, tin of sardine bones, a pile of broken eggshells, an old smushed-up rotten gizzard with maggots all over it.
Okay, it's worth it.
Number 9 is Boys Don't Cry, directed by Kimberly Pierce, who also directed... yeah, that movie. Hilary Swank won the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1999, and it's my second favorite General Academy Award win behind Parasite. Hilary Swank completely disappears into the role of the transgendered male Brandon Teena, paying tribute to his short life with such dedication and conviction. All the performances are actually fantastic overall with respect to the actual events. The film is very well shot with Kimberly Pierce's focused and sensitive direction. The music is great, sometimes even amazing. There are small details about the characters that help develop them throughout the story, and it's a truly emotionally wrenching experience as we're forced to witness the tragedy that the late Brandon Teena experienced. This is definitely not an easy movie to watch, less so than City of God, but if this looks like something that's up your alley, then definitely give it a watch.
I'm in a dream. Someone walked me home last night. I think it was you.
And number 8 is The Prince of Egypt, the massively underrated animated feature that everyone agrees to be a masterpiece. The visuals and atmosphere are fantastic, both the sound design and editing are near perfect, as well as the film editing itself, and the animation still holds the test of time. What I love about this movie is how well it utilizes aspects of film more so than any other animated film I've seen. The film has some impeccable cinematography, certain shots are reintegrated in a way that develops the story and the characters, and the music, oh god, the music is just something that you have to experience yourself. I honestly can't describe it. And you don't have to be a believer to enjoy and appreciate this movie. Otherwise, why would DreamWorks of all studios even distribute it? But I definitely recommend you watch it if you haven't already, and make sure that you're watching it on the biggest TV you can. Like Samsara, it's the best way to experience this movie. So check it out. And number 7 is Pieces of a Woman, directed by Cornel Mundruczó. This is a pretty captivating and emotionally wrenching film. This is one that I will not spoil at all because the first 30 minutes are the most important part of the film and ripple the events that happen throughout the film. Vanessa Kirby, Shia LaBeouf, and especially Ellen Burstyn give top-notch performances. I do feel Burstyn should have also been nominated aside Kirby, but that's not to say that Kirby wasn't equally great. Her commitment to the role is incredibly clear, and I wouldn't think of her nomination wasn't being deserved. The cinematography is excellent, with scenes that have long, lingering, floaty takes, which plays into the intended themes explored in the film. There are details that are set up and beautifully paid off, and I personally enjoyed the overall story being told. One thing that I found distracting was the soundtrack. It's not a bad one, but just a little generic, and I feel like this movie deserves something a little more distinct and unique. Other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed this film both times I watched it, and I recommend it.
Please. Promise me.
I promise.
And number 6, we have Angel's Egg. Alright, now this one is indefinitely the least accessible film on this list. This film breaks almost every single standard narrative boundary that you can possibly think of. But this movie is absolutely something else. Angel's Egg is less of a story and more of a visual, artful experience, and if that's not something you're into, you might as well just skip this movie. I find this movie to be absolutely enthralling, from its absorbing, chilling atmosphere, to its stellar ambient score, and to its gorgeous yet haunting imagery. Now, prior knowledge did admittedly help appreciate this movie much more than I would have otherwise. This was pretty much a very personal film for director Mamoru Oshii. It's pretty much the opposite of The Prince of Egypt in terms of its themes of faith. I definitely will be seeing this movie again in the near future, and even though it's not a film that I would recommend to everyone because of how different it is, I still think it's worth a watch, so check it out. And at number 5, we have An Elephant Sitting Still. Now this one is not nearly as inaccessible as Angel's Egg, but if you're someone that's intimidated by a 4-hour runtime, then I still suggest you get over that and just see this movie. The film follows 4 main characters as they journey to a place in China that apparently has a mythological elephant. This is one of those films where the journey is much more important than the destination, and throughout the journey the characters deepen and their relationships with each other are thoroughly explored. And based on the footage that you're seeing now, the cinematography stands out the most. The film has these very slow, lingering shots to help us get into each character's heads and their perspective, and panning to their nuanced facial expressions really help to read and understand how they're dealing with their own personal issues. And we also get these intentionally slow tracking shots that once again emphasizes each character's personal path to the end goal. Aside from how amazingly shot and directed this movie is, the movie is beautifully scored with a lot of these somber pieces and alternative music cues. Seeing this movie again really caused the runtime to fly by, and I have no issue wanting to watch it again. This was director and author Hugh Bow's first and sadly last film, and he went all out. This is an amazing and complete film, and I recommend it highly.
那里坐着一头大象。跟你有什么关系？
And number 4 is South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut. Now, while I never hated South Park growing up, I just never gave it attention, and being a film lover, experiencing this movie got me into the series pretty quick, and I'm glad it did. If you're aware of the series, then you already know what to expect from this feature film. This is one of the better film adaptations of a TV series that I've seen, and this is due to Trey Parker and Matt Stone's understanding of the difference between TV and film when telling a story. While some movies fail by just being an extended episode that tells stories that can be summed up in an average episode's runtime, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut tells a story that was pretty strongly plotted and fleshes out the story in a good length of time. This film is hilarious, incredibly offensive, and a lot of fun to watch. And it's also musical with some really well written songs that have been stuck in my head ever since I first saw this movie. And there are small details in the background that can add to the already humorous scenes and really shows that Parker and Stone cared about what they were making. And this film is also deeper than one would expect, exploring the rights of the First Amendment, how far we take censorship, and what certain things media can get away with. I love this movie so much, and if you're a fan of the series, I highly recommend it. Check it out.
Don't say it, Cartman! Well, don't do it, Cartman! Well, I'm warning you! Okay.
And number 3, we have The Killing of a Sacred Deer, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. This might be my favorite film that he's ever done. I've always admired Lanthimos' style and storytelling approach. Sacred Deer is arguably slightly more grounded than his other films, but not by much. This film is about as strange and unsettling as his other films, and sometimes more so than his previous films. Colin Firth and Nicole Kidman are great, and these are some of my favorite roles from them. But the standout is Barry Keoghan. His performance is the most chilling, unique, and sinister I've seen in 2017. Heck, even the 2 child actors are excellent in my opinion. Every single character is incredibly interesting, and I was consistently invested in the story. The cinematography is just incredible, with some clear Stanley Kubrick inspiration to be seen, but this is still something that only Lanthimos can pull off, and his own style still prevails. Now, don't look up any interpretations about this movie before seeing it, because it'll ruin an experience that you won't get from any other film on this list. It's thrilling, horrifying, gripping, disturbing, funny, and the ending is amazing. It's not for everyone, but it's still a worthwhile watch regardless.
There, I said it as quickly as I could. I hope I haven't kept you too long.
And number 2 is The Secret of NIMH, directed by Don Bluth. Now, I'm not crazy about all of Don Bluth's films, but it's no doubt that he was one of the most daring and intelligent animation filmmakers in the medium. With NIMH, he explores complex science fiction themes and raises questions of things that we don't know or understand, while at the same time taking his audience, young and old, seriously. I love how this film explores how science, nature, and the supernatural can help build and create a stronger future for a society. The characters are all well-rounded. Elizabeth Hartman as Mrs. Brisby is stellar. The animation and art direction still hold up as good as they did in 1982, and the score is still fantastic. This is a great nostalgia trip for me, but it also makes me appreciate how intelligent this movie actually is. If you haven't seen this film in a while or haven't seen it at all for some reason, then please check this movie out while you can.
Go. Look there.
And number 1 is Roma. No, not that Roma, even though their food and drinks are pretty fire. But I mean this Roma. You know, the 2018 film that was nominated for 10 freaking Academy Awards and won deservingly Best Cinematography, Best Director, and Best International Film? That Roma. Writer-director Alfonso Cuarón has proven to be a varied and madly talented filmmaker in the past, so it's great to see something from him come off so personal. This is unlike anything I've ever seen from him or any other period piece before from any other filmmaker ever. The cinematography is mesmerizing, with careful, deliberate camera work and intelligent usage of framing for certain shots. This feels like a series of moving photographs from the early 1970s, which is the period that this film is obviously set in. The level of efficiency and communication in the direction just screams uncanny and perfect. The sound design and editing really helps submerge the viewer into both the beauty and the ugly of this setting, and with the lack of music, it becomes even more immersive when you can hear the sounds of the environment just surrounding you, complemented by the film's practically innovative cinematography. The performances are great, even the children actors, and like City of God, with them being nearly unknowns, really elevates the experience. And this is followed by one of my favorite movie protagonists of the last 10 years. The film's writing is so good, with the characters given so much layer and depth, the story being beautifully told, and the film's pacing being smooth and unbreaking. I mean, I can say so much more about this movie, but we'd be here for literal hours. So all I can say is, see this freaking movie. I I recommend it more than any other film on this list. So yeah, it's that good. Please check it out.
Se parece a mi pueblo. Claro, allá está seco. Pero se parece. Y así igual.
And in conclusion, I hope you enjoyed me recommending some more movies to you people. I got some more crap to do, but until then, DM me on IG or Facebook or wherever, and just tell me what you thought of the movies. And if you have anything you want me to see or talk about, please don't hesitate to hit me up in the comments section also. That's always open. I love doing these, and I tend to do them at least maybe every few months or more. So with that being said, peace out and love y'all.